Hey, good day. I hope you're having a lovely day. So, today we are going to discuss how to identify your calling. If you are new to this channel, kindly subscribe to this channel, like this video, and turn on the post notification so you get notified anytime we release a video. I know a lot of people say they don't know what they are called for, they don't know their calling. So, we are going to discuss that in a brief. Without wasting my time, let's look at Exodus chapter 2, verse 11. It says, "And it came to pass in those days when Moses was grown, that he went out unto his brethren and looked on their burdens, and spied an Egyptian smiting a Hebrew, one of his brethren. And he looked this way and that way, and when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian and hid him in the sand." So you see, Moses was on his way to check up on his brethren, and then he sees an Egyptian smiting his brethren. Now, the moment Moses sees that he is something in him is like quickened for him to go and rescue the guy who is being afflicted by the Egyptian. All right, he delivered his Hebrew brother from the hand of the Egyptian who was afflicting him. All right, and then again in the verse 13, it says, and when he went out the second day, now this is the second day, when he went out the second day, behold, two men of the Hebrews strove together, and he said to them that did a wrong, "Why strike you your fellow?" So again, Moses is going, and then he sees two people striving against each other, fighting against each other. And then when he sees that, he quickly goes to intervene. And then he's asking the one who did wrong, "Why strike you your fellow?" Let's look at another scene from the verse 16. It says, "Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. And the shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flock." Now these ladies come to the well to like draw water and then feed their flock. And then now these other shepherds come to draw the priest's daughters away. And immediately Moses saw that, he quickly came to intervene for the daughters of the priest. Moses was someone that was always quick to help people or deliver people that were being afflicted by others. Do you see that? So it was something that was in him naturally. It was something that was in him. You see, and when Moses met God on the Mount of Horeb, God told him that he has heard the cry of his people, which is the people of Israel who were in captive in the land of Egypt. All right. And then and then God told Moses to go forth to Pharaoh and then go and deliver his people out of captivity. Moses was the best guy for God to send for such a mission, because naturally he was someone who liked to deliver people out from affliction, or someone liked to deliver people out from captivity. So we can see that Moses' calling was to deliver God's people out of captivity. Now let's look at Paul in the book of Acts chapter 22 verse 3. Let's look at the Passion Translation. You see, he says, "I grew up in this city and was properly trained in the Mosaic law and tutored by Rabbi Gamaliel according to our ancestral custom." So Paul was someone that was really educated. He really loved knowledge about the law, about the Mosaic law. He was really trained according to his ancestral custom. So Paul was like a Pharisee. He was those people that were really strict on the law. He stood for the law, and he says what? "I have been extremely passionate in my desire to please God, just as all of you are." It was something that was natural to Paul, to be educated about the law, to grow in knowledge, and then so passionate about pleasing God, to the extent that he kept on persecuting and killing the followers of Jesus Christ, because he thought those people were going against the laws which their forefathers had received from God. Like that is the Mosaic law. So Paul was a Pharisee. So that was the nature of Paul. You see, and now when Paul had met Jesus, he had a calling of an apostle. And then now in this pursuit to be an apostle, Paul had to grow in knowledge. It was something that was in him, to grow in knowledge, to know the things about the law, okay, or to know about the things of God. So Paul, you find Paul saying, "Study to show yourself approved." So Paul was someone who studied a lot. Paul was someone who wanted to grow in the knowledge of whom he has met, which is Christ, the truth. Okay, so upon his call to be an apostle, he was someone who really wanted to equip himself with knowledge and then study a lot. And then he says he was extremely passionate in his desire to please God. So even as he met Christ, he was passionate about pleasing Christ. That's why he says in Galatians 2:20, he says, "I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless, yet not I, but Christ lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by faith of the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me." So you see, his extreme passionate to please God had gotten to the extent that he was extremely passionate to please Christ. That he said that he is crucified with Christ. that now the life that he's living is Christ that is living through him, that he has availed himself to like please Christ. Okay, so now he's no longer living for himself, but then he's allowing Christ to live through him. So that was something that was in Paul. So you see, what God has put in you is indicative of what he has called you to be. Some of you, compassion is in your nature. When you see people that are in need, you have compassion. You want to like help the needy. It is your desire to like help everyone that is in need. Although you cannot help everyone that is in need, you wish you could help everyone that is in need. Be called to be a blessing unto God's people who are in need. You see, of you also, when you see people that are lost, like you are burdened, like you keep on asking yourself, so where are these souls going? If these people should die, where are they going? Like you have this burden for souls. You have like you are so concerned about the souls of men. It means you can have the calling of an evangelist. Some of you, like it is in your nature to give. You give naturally. Like even when you don't have much and then they ask you for something, although you have little, you are so willing to give. You see, it can be that God has called you to be a kingdom financier where you give to support his work. Some of you to realize writing comes natural to you. You don't suffer when you are writing. You can write things about your loved ones and then you realize that you're writing like a whole passage, like you're just flowing. It comes so natural. When you're wishing a loved one on a birthday or something, you can even write like a long passage about the person, and that writing comes natural to you. It can be that God has called you to write books, novels. God has called you to write materials that will help others or books that will inspire people. Are we together? So it's not everyone that is called to preach on the pulpits. So whatever God has placed in you and wherever he has placed you to be, you are supposed to review him through that. Are we together? So it's not everyone that is meant to preach on the pulpit or something. So you just need to find what God has put in you and what he has called you to be in him. So your calling is who he has called you to be in Christ Jesus. All right. What God has put in you is indicative of who he has called you to be. Realize that in the life of Moses, in the life of Paul, they found their calling in Christ, or they found their calling when they met God. Okay. They were not conscious of that calling. Okay. Although that thing was in their nature, they were not conscious of it. But then they became conscious of it when they met God. So your calling is in Christ. Check your life. The things that come natural to you, the things that you see yourself doing naturally, is what you are going to use in your calling in Christ. Okay, so some people will be like, if I look at my life, I don't really know what's. Ask your friends, ask people around you. And some people also are waiting to discover their calling before they start doing something. No, you need to do the things that God has already commanded us to do. He has called us, he has commanded us to love. So you need to love. He has commanded us to walk in holiness before him. So you need to walk in holiness. He has commanded us to go and preach to the world. So you need to be doing these things. You need to do the things that is already written, the commandments which he has commanded us to do. So do not wait to identify your calling before you start doing the things that God has commanded us to do. So walk in holiness, consecrate yourself, preach the gospel. Don't wait to identify your calling before you preach, because that's a commandment to everyone. That's a great commission. We are supposed to preach. And then whilst you are doing that, who God has called you to be will be coming out much more clearer and clearer the more you are spending time with him. I hope this video has blessed you. And if you like what I'm wearing, there's a mesh from EK Clothing. God is faithful. They have other designs as well, which comes in hoodies, sweatshirts, and then t-shirts. So you can copy your merch also at EK Clothing if you are looking for something cool to wear. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Stay blessed.